I'm not going anywhere. If you want to criticize my 16 years of service, please bring it on.
Well, in just hours, FBI Director Kash Patel is scheduled to face lawmakers again after a very contentious hearing yesterday. Several Democratic senators hammering him over firing decisions and falsely announcing the capture of a suspect in the Charlie Kirk case. Patel pushed back, at times getting into verbal shouting matches with lawmakers as he defended his record.
Man, oh man, there has been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy.
Hey guys, welcome back. Dr. John is here. So what just happened? Kash Patel's defense for withholding the Epstein files, claiming federal judges had tied his hands, collapsed when those very judges contradicted him publicly. With his excuse shattered, the FBI director now faces devastating fallout as Congress demands answers he can no longer hide behind. Picture this scene. Patel is sitting there before the House, trying to maintain his composure, trying to project the image of a man who's doing everything he possibly can, but is simply blocked by forces beyond his control. He's got this whole routine down pat. He gets defensive, he gets snippy, he acts like anyone questioning him is attacking his integrity. But then the truth starts seeping through the cracks, because it turns out those court orders he's been citing so conveniently only involve a small, narrow category of materials.
But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining. Yet we are supposed to believe that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you are already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh,
specifically some grand jury documents that have strict secrecy rules around them. That's it. That's the whole basis of Patel's elaborate excuse. And here's the part he conveniently left out of his testimony. A federal judge named Richard Berman, who presided over one of these cases, wrote an opinion that directly contradicts Patel's entire narrative. Berman wrote that the Trump administration is the logical party to make a comprehensive public release of Epstein files in its possession. Let that sink in for a moment. A federal judge, the exact kind of authority Patel keeps pointing to as the reason he can't release these documents, explicitly said the government should be putting this information out there. The judge wasn't blocking disclosure. The judge was practically inviting the administration to do it. The judge was saying,
you know, we're happy because now we feel safe. I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues, and frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
You have all this material. You are the ones who should make it public. And Patel has been standing before Congress, looking lawmakers in the eye, and telling them the exact opposite. This is devastating. This isn't a minor misstatement or a misunderstanding. This is a complete and total contradiction of the factual record. Representative Dan Goldman, a former federal prosecutor who knows exactly how the legal system works, wasn't having any of it. He confronted Patel directly, accusing him of hiding the Epstein files, calling him part of the cover-up. Those are powerful words from a member of Congress to the FBI director. But when you look at the actual court rulings versus what Patel has been telling lawmakers,
without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay, so here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody, and then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap, because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there, even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing except for trying to put on a show for
Goldman's accusations look completely justified. Patel has been mischaracterizing court orders to avoid releasing documents that the American people have every right to see. He's been using a narrow ruling about a small subset of materials as an excuse to keep everything hidden. And now the judges themselves are essentially calling him out on it. The mask is off. The excuse is destroyed. And Patel is left standing there with nothing to hide behind. Let's really dig into what Patel has been claiming versus what the courts actually said. During that hearing, Patel got absolutely cornered.
The apprentice, or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem. The one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. If the gentleman would like to respond to any of that. Well, I'll respond. Kash Patel, as I said when I introduced him, public defender, former prosecutor, top staffer on the House Intelligence Committee, deputy director of national intelligence with the National Security Council, chief of staff at the Department of Defense, and FBI director. I think that's a pretty good resume for the guy who's now running the top law enforcement agency in our country. And we've seen all the stats that he's given to the committee on how much better they're doing at getting the bad guys than the previous guy was doing. With that, I recognize the gentleman from South Carolina.
Lawmakers pressed him on why the FBI hasn't released thousands of Epstein-related documents. Why are there still so many files being withheld? What exactly is the administration trying to hide? And Patel stuck to his script. He said he was barred by recent court orders. He acted like anyone asking questions was being unreasonable. He even said he wasn't going to break the law to satisfy curiosity. But the truth is that the court orders he keeps citing don't cover most of what the FBI has. They only cover a specific category of materials: grand jury documents. Grand jury proceedings are indeed secret. There are rules and laws about what can be disclosed. And yes, a court did issue a ruling on some grand jury materials in the Epstein case. But Patel conveniently left out the part where the judge who made that ruling noted that these materials were relatively insignificant compared to the massive amount of Epstein-related information the government possesses. The FBI has investigative files, they have witness statements, they have evidence collected over years of painstaking investigation. None of that is covered by the grand jury secrecy rules. None of that is subject to the court orders Patel keeps citing. The administration could release all of that material tomorrow if they wanted to. The courts are not stopping them. Patel is choosing secrecy and blaming the courts for it. And here's what makes this whole situation even more outrageous. Much of what Patel cites as sealed has actually been unsealed in other proceedings. Search warrant affidavits, materials related to the Ghislaine Maxwell case, documents that Patel acts like are locked away forever, have actually been released through other court processes. So either Patel doesn't know what's actually been unsealed, which would make him shockingly incompetent for someone in his position, or he knows and is deliberately misleading Congress and the American people, which would make him dishonest. Neither option is good. Neither option inspires confidence in the FBI director or the administration he serves. Legal analysts who've reviewed Patel's testimony have been scathing in their assessments. They say he mischaracterized what the court actually ordered. They say his claims are deeply misleading. They say he has serious credibility problems now, both before Congress, where he could face perjury concerns if he made false statements under oath, and before the courts, where judges do not appreciate having their rulings misrepresented to the public. Because when you go before lawmakers and tell them the courts are blocking you, and then the courts themselves put out written opinions saying, actually, we think you should release this stuff, you look like you've been caught in a lie, and that's exactly what happened to Kash Patel. The question everyone is asking now is why? Why is Patel hiding behind false claims about court orders? Why is the Trump administration fighting so hard to keep Epstein files secret? What is in those documents that they don't want the American people to see? There have been reports that some redactions in the Epstein files include Trump's name. There have been questions about which powerful people are being protected. There has been speculation about what the full unredacted files would reveal about connections between Epstein and political figures on both sides of the aisle. When the administration fights this hard to keep documents secret, when the FBI director goes before Congress and misleads lawmakers about court orders, it naturally raises questions about what they're hiding. Patel made another controversial statement during this whole saga, claiming there was no credible evidence of other abusers beyond those already prosecuted. Victims, advocates, and legal experts strongly disputed that claim. The pattern emerging from all of this suggests protection of powerful interests rather than pursuit of truth and justice. And the more Patel tries to explain away the contradictions, the more tangled his web of deception becomes. The pressure is mounting on Patel. The contradictions between his claims and reality are documented. The video of the hearing is out there for everyone to see. The court opinions are public record. And the question of what the administration is hiding in those Epstein files is not going away. Let's take a step back and really understand the full scope of what's happening here, because this goes far beyond one congressional hearing or one FBI director's misleading testimony. This is about a pattern of behavior, a consistent effort to block transparency, and a systematic cover-up of information that the American people have every right to see. Patel is just the public face of this operation, the guy who has to stand there and deliver the talking points while the administration quietly keeps the Epstein files locked away. But now that his excuses have been exposed as fundamentally dishonest, the entire operation is coming under scrutiny in a way it never has before. The hearing where this all came to a head was absolutely electric. You could feel the tension in that room as lawmakers pressed Patel on the Epstein files. They wanted to know why the FBI hasn't released everything. They wanted to know why there are still thousands of documents being withheld. They wanted to know what the administration is hiding. And Patel's answer was the same one he's been giving for months. He claimed he was barred by recent court orders. He got defensive and snippy, acting like the people asking questions were being unreasonable, like they were demanding he commit a crime. He made it sound like his hands were completely tied, like there was simply nothing he could do. But here's the thing about that defense. It doesn't hold up to even basic scrutiny. The court orders Patel keeps citing involve only a small set of grand jury materials. That's it. A narrow category of documents that have specific secrecy rules attached to them. And the judges who issued those rulings, they specifically noted that these materials were insignificant compared to the massive trove of Epstein files the government possesses. So when Patel goes before Congress and acts like these narrow rulings are preventing him from releasing everything, he's being fundamentally misleading. He's taking a ruling about a tiny subset of documents and using it as an excuse to keep thousands of other documents hidden. Judge Richard Berman, the very judge Patel has been citing as the reason he can't release these files, explicitly wrote that the Trump administration is the logical party to make a comprehensive public release of Epstein files in its possession. Think about that. A federal judge, the exact kind of authority Patel keeps pointing to, wrote in a formal opinion that the government should be releasing this material. The judge was not blocking disclosure. The judge was encouraging it. The judge was saying the administration has all this information and they're the ones who should make it public. That's the complete opposite of what Patel has been telling Congress. And now that this contradiction has been exposed, Patel's credibility is absolutely destroyed. Representative Dan Goldman, who's a former federal prosecutor and knows exactly how the legal system works, saw right through Patel's claims. He confronted Patel directly, accusing him of hiding the Epstein files. He called Patel part of the cover-up. When you have a member of Congress, especially one with Goldman's legal background, accusing the FBI director of being part of a cover-up, that's a major moment. That's not some partisan attack. That's a former prosecutor looking at the evidence and concluding that the FBI director is deliberately misleading the public. And when you read the actual court rulings compared to what Patel has been saying, it's hard to argue with Goldman's assessment. Legal analysts who've reviewed Patel's testimony have been uniformly critical. They say he mischaracterized what the court actually ordered. They say his claims were misleading. They say he has exposed himself to serious credibility problems both before Congress, where he could face perjury concerns, and before the courts where judges don't appreciate having their rulings misrepresented. The consensus among legal experts is that Patel's defense has completely collapsed. You cannot claim the courts are blocking you when the courts themselves are saying you should release this stuff. That's not a legal argument. That's a dishonest attempt to avoid accountability. The administration knows how to seek broader unsealing. They did exactly that when they wanted certain grand jury materials released. They went to court, they made their case, they got a ruling. They understand the process perfectly well. But when it comes to seeking unsealing of the much larger body of Epstein files, they haven't done it. They haven't even tried. They're not fighting in court to get these documents released. They're using a narrow ruling about a small category of materials as an excuse to keep everything hidden. That's a choice. That's a deliberate decision to prioritize secrecy over transparency. And Patel has been the public face of that choice, standing before Congress and pretending his hands are tied when in fact the administration simply doesn't want these documents released. Forbes did extensive fact-checking on Patel's claims, and the conclusion was damning. Much of what Patel cites as sealed has actually been unsealed in other proceedings. Search warrant affidavits, materials from the Ghislaine Maxwell case, documents that Patel acts like are locked away forever have actually been released through other legal processes. So his characterization of what is and isn't available is simply wrong. Either he doesn't know what the actual state of the records is, which would be an embarrassing level of ignorance for the FBI director, or he knows and is deliberately misrepresenting the situation, which would be dishonest. Neither option reflects well on Patel or the administration he serves. Let's connect this to the broader context of what's happening with the Epstein files under the Trump administration. There have been reports that some redactions in the released materials include Trump's name. Questions have swirled about which powerful people are being protected. Patel made that controversial statement claiming there was no credible evidence of other abusers beyond those already prosecuted, a claim that victims, advocates, and legal experts strongly disputed. There are reports of internal chaos at the FBI under Patel's leadership, low morale, concerns about politicization, and then there's Pam Bondi at the Justice Department, who's faced parallel scrutiny over Epstein transparency. There are FOIA fights happening, court orders for expedited processing of records requests. The pattern across Trump's law enforcement leadership is clear. They blame courts and legal constraints for secrecy, while judges quietly document in their written opinions that it's actually the administration choosing to withhold information. This is not about legal limitations. This is about political choices. The administration has chosen not to release the Epstein files. They have chosen not to seek broader unsealing. They have chosen to hide behind narrow court rulings that do not actually prevent disclosure of most materials. And Kash Patel has been the public face of that choice, going before Congress and misleading lawmakers about what the courts have and have not ordered. The implications of this go far beyond just one set of documents. If Patel is willing to mislead Congress about court orders, what else is he willing to mislead them about? If the administration is willing to hide behind false legal claims to keep the Epstein files secret, what other information are they hiding? This is not just about Epstein. This is about whether we can trust our law enforcement leadership to be honest with the American people. And right now, the evidence suggests that we cannot. Patel's credibility is shattered. His excuses have been exposed as lies. And the administration's commitment to transparency has been revealed as nothing more than empty rhetoric. The fallout from this hearing is going to be absolutely devastating for Kash Patel, and the consequences are going to ripple through the entire Trump administration. This is not just a political embarrassment. This is a fundamental breach of trust between the FBI director and the American people. When you go before Congress and mislead lawmakers about court orders, when you build an entire defense around claims that the judges themselves contradict, you have forfeited any claim to credibility. Patel's testimony has been exposed as fundamentally dishonest, and there's no way to walk that back. The video of the hearing is out there. The court opinions are public record. The contradictions are undeniable. And now Patel has to face the consequences. Think about what Patel's collapse means for the broader effort to get the Epstein files released. For months, the administration has been pointing to Patel's claims as the reason they couldn't release these documents. They've been using his testimony as a shield, saying, look, the FBI director says the courts are blocking him, there's nothing we can do. But now that shield has been shattered. Now it's clear that Patel was not telling the truth. Now it's clear that the courts are not the obstacle. The administration is the obstacle. They have chosen to keep these documents secret. They have chosen to hide behind false claims. And now that those claims have been exposed, the pressure on them to release the files is going to intensify dramatically. Representative Dan Goldman's accusation that Patel is part of a cover-up is going to stick. It's going to follow Patel for the rest of his career. Every time he testifies before Congress, every time he appears in court, every time he makes a public statement, people are going to remember that he was caught misleading lawmakers about the Epstein files. His credibility is destroyed. And for an FBI director, credibility is everything. You cannot lead the nation's premier law enforcement agency if no one believes what you say. You cannot be an effective witness before courts and Congress if everyone knows you're willing to bend the truth to protect the administration's interests. The legal consequences for Patel could be serious. If he made false statements under oath, he could face perjury charges. If Congress decides he deliberately misled them, they could initiate contempt proceedings. If judges determine that he misrepresented their rulings, they could sanction him. The path forward for Patel is treacherous. Every step he takes from here on out will be scrutinized. Every word he says will be doubted. And the administration that put him in this position may find that he's become more of a liability than an asset. There's also the question of what happens with the Epstein files themselves. Now that Patel's excuses have been exposed, the pressure on the administration to release these documents is going to be overwhelming. Congress is going to demand answers. Journalists are going to keep investigating. FOIA lawsuits are going to proceed. The courts are going to keep issuing rulings. And the administration is going to have to decide whether to continue fighting transparency or finally give the American people the truth they deserve. The victims of Jeffrey Epstein deserve to know who else was involved. They deserve to know which powerful people participated in or enabled Epstein's crimes. The American people deserve to know if their leaders have connections to a convicted sex trafficker. And when the FBI director goes before Congress and misleads lawmakers to protect that secrecy, he is doing a grave disservice to justice. He is choosing to protect the powerful over the vulnerable. He is choosing cover-up over accountability. And now he's been caught. The pattern emerging from this whole saga is deeply troubling. The administration has consistently prioritized secrecy over transparency. They have consistently misled the public about why information is being withheld. They have consistently blamed courts and legal constraints when the real obstacle has been their own political choices. And Kash Patel has been at the center of it all, the FBI director who stood before Congress and told lawmakers that his hands were tied, when in fact he was the one doing the tying. But the truth has a way of coming out eventually. The courts have spoken. The judges have made their positions clear. The contradictions between Patel's claims and reality have been documented. And now the question is whether the administration will continue to fight transparency or finally do the right thing. The pressure is mounting. The scrutiny is intensifying, and the American people are demanding answers. What happens next is uncertain. There could be perjury referrals. There could be contempt proceedings. There could be court orders forcing disclosure. Or the administration could finally relent and release the Epstein files. But one thing seems clear. Kash Patel's credibility is destroyed. His excuses have been exposed as lies. And the administration's commitment to transparency has been revealed as nothing more than empty rhetoric. The Epstein files remain hidden, but the reason for that secrecy is no longer in doubt. It's not the courts. It's not legal constraints. It's the administration choosing to protect powerful interests over the truth. The American people deserve better. Victims deserve better. Justice deserves better. And as the fallout from this hearing continues to unfold, the question of what exactly is in those Epstein files remains. What is the administration so desperate to hide? Which powerful people are they protecting? And why is the FBI director willing to mislead Congress to keep the truth buried? Those questions are not going away, and eventually the truth will come out whether the administration wants it to or not. The next steps are unclear, but the direction is inevitable. Congress will keep demanding answers. Journalists will keep investigating. Courts will keep issuing rulings. And eventually, the full truth about Jeffrey Epstein and his network of powerful associates will be revealed. The administration can delay, they can obfuscate, they can mislead, but they cannot stop the truth from coming out forever. The walls are closing in on Kash Patel and the entire Trump administration. The excuses have been exposed, the cover-up has been revealed, and now the only question is how much longer they can keep the truth hidden.